Also coming up on Local 5 News, it's a story of sportsmanship that is sure to leave you smiling.
She first started the program, our plan was to get her in one game. I think the last 2 seasons she got in over 20 games.
Meet a Western Iowa girls basketball team that shows us what it really means to win on the court.
The Des Moines River is dangerously jammed tonight. See the damage left by these massive chunks of ice. Plus,
absolutely no empathy for anybody else. I believe he absolutely had no conscience, and his actions very clearly demonstrate that he was very violent.
Police solved the Metro's first homicide of the year, but it comes with a bizarre twist.
Local 5 News at 10 in HD starts now. We are Iowa.
Good evening, I'm Stephanie Engelson.
And I'm Jack Miller. Tonight, the warm spring-like temps that we've seen over the past few days are causing some big problems out on the Des Moines River. The broken up ice is floating downriver, and as the river narrows, the chunks of ice block it up. That causes big ice jams that backs up the whole river and can cause flooding. Chief Meteorologist Brad Edwards is here with which counties are still under a flood warning tonight and whether this is going to get worse. But first, before we talk with Brad, when that ice does move, it packs a lot of power. Local 5's Nikki Davidson saw the damage firsthand. It's tonight's big story.
In Fort Dodge tonight, ice jams are still causing huge problems. We are on Madison Avenue, and as you can see, this road is blocked off. No one will be able to get through because huge chunks of ice from the Des Moines River are blocking the way. As melting ice rushes down the Des Moines River, it packs a power that can change at a moment's notice. This part of Fort Dodge is not new to ice jams this time of year, but these are the worst they've seen in 6 years.
The ice was up to 18 inches thick, stacked as high as 10 feet, and the water was 10 to 12 feet above normal in some locations.
The Des Moines National Weather Service has been tracking the Des Moines River levels all day. The ice jams can back up a lot of water with the potential for flash flooding when the ice finally breaks away.
They definitely have a lot of power behind them. They have the potential to cause significant property damage and also cause flash flooding, even on big rivers such as the Des Moines River.
It's a power some residents saw firsthand today, only a few feet away from their homes.
As it jams up down there, it starts piling up here, and it was grinding the trees, and eventually it takes the deck and the neighbor's deck and the other neighbor's deck.
Several homes were hit with property damage like this, others the victim of flash flooding. But with the significant jam still stuck in the Fort Dodge area, it is not over.
There's always more coming.
The National Weather Service says all of that rainfall we got in December did play a big factor in this because the river levels were higher. That meant that the ice was closer to bridges and all of the obstacles that it had to get around, creating even more ice jams. Reporting in Fort Dodge, Nikki Davidson, Local 5 News, We Are Iowa.
And Brad here is now to talk about that weather more. We had the nice warm up, of course. And this is typical in the springs, but it can be a lot worse some years than others.
It can, and we've had a lot of rain before this back in December. Then we had the snow, we had the cold temperatures, and then the big warm up. Now here is some of those counties that are seeing the flood potential out there. And again, it's the Raccoon River, North Raccoon, also the Des Moines River primarily. And so far it's just minor flooding expected. Now here's our forecast going into the next 10 days. Temperatures are going to be above freezing, but not as much as they used to be. Our warmest day is Saturday, so we're going to slow down the melting out there. That's going to help things out a little bit, and a lot of the rivers and areas are kind of cresting in the next day or so, so things should probably improve by the end of the week.
Yeah, because there's nothing worse than going from 0 to 60.
Yeah, that's what really does it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Brad, we'll see you in a few minutes. Thanks.
Well, a bizarre twist helped Des Moines police to solve the city's first homicide. It's a tale of two crime scenes. An unsolved case in Des Moines from last month where an elderly woman was violently murdered, and then in Urbandale where police shot and killed a man in a hotel lobby. How are they related? Well, today we found out. Des Moines police say DNA evidence has linked Ali Yahia to the murder of 71-year-old Norma Jean McNeely, but he won't be charged because last weekend Yahia was shot and killed by Urbandale police at a Holiday Inn. Police say it took a couple of weeks to match Yahia's blood at the crime scene. They say he stabbed Norma Jean McNeely several times before he was caught leaving on security video.
When we think about the reason we get into the business and putting bad guys in prison, this is the guy we're thinking about. This guy was a known violent offender, absolutely no empathy for anybody else. I believe he absolutely had no conscience, and his actions very clearly demonstrate that he was very violent.
Police say they strongly believe Yahia is the only possible suspect here. They're not sure why he killed McNeely, but say it may have been a robbery. Now, we did reach out to Urbandale Police to see if this will impact their investigation into the officer-involved shootings where Yahia was killed. They told us they hope this new evidence brings closure to the McNeely family, but didn't mention their investigation. These 3 officers are all on leave right now while that shooting is investigated.
In national headlines tonight, America gets its first good look at the Kalamazoo shooter. Jason Dalton is charged with murder after that shooting rampage in Kalamazoo that killed 6 people and injured 2 more. Police say the 45-year-old opened fire in the parking lot of an apartment complex on Saturday night. He's also accused of killing a father and son at a car dealership and several other people outside a restaurant. Dalton was an Uber driver, and investigators say he actually continued picking up passengers in between shootings.
I half-heartedly joked at him and said, "You're not the shooter, are you?" And he said no, and I said, "Are you sure?" And he said, "No, I'm just really tired."
Police believe Dalton randomly chose the victims, and his motive is still a mystery.
She died in the bathtub, and now 4 years later, we're just getting to jury selection. Attorneys say nearly 100 potential jurors have been called in the trial surrounding Emily Fazzino's death. Her husband, who you see here, Alexander Fazzino, is charged with her 2012 death at their home in Boone. Prosecutors say Fazzino hit and killed Emily in the family's bathtub. The trial was delayed 5 times since then. Local 5 will be there later this week to cover the trial. We'll keep you updated throughout it.
New tonight at 10, it was meth that killed an Iowa jail inmate last year. Back in December in Page County, a woman was found dead inside the jail. Doctors say she died of a meth overdose. Jessica Lee was sent to jail for possession of a controlled substance almost a month earlier. So investigators wondered, how did she get the meth in her system? A recorded phone call from the jail now reveals that Lee told someone she snuck it inside her body cavity, that the drugs were absorbed by her body, and that she was dying from it. No foul play is suspected in her death.
Well, the Supreme Court returned to work today in the wake of Justice Antonin Scalia's death. Justice Scalia's funeral took place on Saturday. While his memory is still being honored, there is still lots of talk about who will replace him on the bench. Now, according to legal experts, the Constitution says it is the president's duty during his term to appoint the next Supreme Court justice. But critics are saying it should be the next president, not President Obama. Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley, also the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, has a major say in whether President Barack Obama's Supreme Court nominee even gets a hearing. Now, today we talked to Grassley's former chief of staff and 3rd District Congressman David Young to see if he agrees.
You know, the president will follow the Constitution, and he should, and the Senate, I imagine, will advise and consent. So the president will nominate, and in the Senate, the House is not involved in this, and the Senate will either approve, disapprove, or they may not even bring up the issue at all. And so I'm watching like everybody else here about what happens in the Senate.
Would you say that you disagreed with Senator Grassley then in his opinion on this?
I'm gonna leave that up to the Senate, and Senator Grassley is going to do the right thing in the end. He always does.
A White House spokesperson says a final decision on any possible nominee is not expected for several weeks.
Coming up on Local 5 News at 10, after a whole bunch of drama and limited playing time, Jameel McKay is back on the court tonight for the Cyclones. Jordan has details later in sports.
Also in sports tonight, the Grandview Christian girls basketball team is one of 6 remaining unbeaten. Tonight they're looking for their first ever trip to state, taking on Mount Ayr.
And speaking of girls basketball, a tale of true sportsmanship from Western Iowa tonight.
And our work week weather looks pretty mild, but it gets a little bit wilder by the weekend. I got that forecast coming up.
Good Morning Iowa.
Entrepreneurism alive and well, as one man may have a hit board game on his hands or his finger.
It's a handful. We're going to answer the question of what is a flip board.
All right, guys, our forecast trying to stay kind of mild. Guess we're dry most of this week. That'll be nice.
Staying positive tomorrow. All new on Good Morning Iowa.